Hi you guys, I'm Liv. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to break down something that's been confusing a lot of people, and that's when it comes to birthright citizenship under the 14th Amendment. Now some people are wondering, who was it really created for? Like, why do so many people say it was meant only for the descendants of enslaved Black Americans? And how did it change to mean anyone born on U.S. soil, even if their parents aren't citizens? So, as you guys know, Donald Trump has been speaking about the legalities of birthright citizenships and how it has been abused and pretty much morally hijacked from its original meaning. I'm going to play you the clip for context, and then I'll explain how it was all manipulated. Here is the clip.
File to proceed with numerous policies that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis. And some of the cases we're talking about would be ending birthright citizenship, which now comes to the fore. That was meant for the babies of slaves. It wasn't meant for people trying to scam the system and come into the country on a vacation. This was, in fact, it was the same date, the exact same date, the end of the Civil War. It was meant for the babies of slaves, and it's so clean and so obvious. But this lets us go there and finally win that case, because hundreds of thousands of people are pouring into our country under birthright citizenship, and it wasn't meant for that reason. It was meant for the babies of slaves. So thanks to this decision, we can now promptly file to proceed with these numerous policies and those that have been wrongly enjoined on a nationwide basis, including birthright citizenship, ending sanctuary city funding, suspending refugee resettlement, freezing unnecessary funding, stopping federal taxpayers from paying for transgender surgeries. And
so let's clear this all up, because he's actually right about our history. The 14th Amendment was originally written to protect the children of enslaved Black people. But over time, it was altered, and that's why so many people, especially Black Americans, are asking, like, wait, how did this start to apply to everybody born here? So that brings us to the Dred Scott decision. It's the reason the 14th Amendment even exists. So before we even had the 14th Amendment, there was a famous Supreme Court case called Dred Scott versus Stanford in 1857. Dred Scott was a Black man who had been enslaved. He lived in free states and sued for his freedom, basically saying, I've lived on free soil, I should be free, and I should be a citizen. To give you guys a little background, Dred Scott was enslaved by Dr. John Emerson, who moved to a free state which could rule Dred Scott to be legally free. Now, after Emerson died, Dred Scott tried to buy his freedom from Emerson's wife. She refused and later remarried and became a Stanford. Dred Scott decided to fight for his freedom and legal citizenship in court. That's how you get the famous Supreme Court case called Dred Scott versus Stanford in 1857. He had a lot of prominent people who supported him in this case, and that's including white and malicious lawyers and the Black community. Now, Chief Justice Roger Brooke Taney led the decision of the Supreme Court and denied Dred Scott's citizenship. This man was heavily supportive of slavery and believed that no Black people, no matter if they were free or enslaved, could ever have citizenship. Black and white communities now united against the ruling. They call it the worst decision ever made. Even Abraham Lincoln firmly believed Chief Justice Taney's Dred Scott ruling was morally wrong, unjust, and dangerous. He argued it was part of their plan to extend slavery into all states, which he fought against, eventually leading to his election and the Civil War. Now, to win the Civil War, the Union needed both free and enslaved Black Americans to fight with them. In return, they promised to overturn the Dred Scott decision and ensure that all Black people, those who were free and those who have been enslaved, along with their children and descendants, will be granted birthright citizenship that could never be questioned again. So Black Americans went and fought in the Civil War, and Americans won. So before the Civil War, Black people weren't even legally citizens of the United States. That's what the 14th Amendment was created to fix, which proves it was for Black Americans and not to be mistaken. After the Civil War ended slavery, Congress said, we need to fix this once and for all. So in 1868, after everything that happened with slavery, the Civil War, and the Dred Scott decision, the United States passed the 14th Amendment to make things crystal clear. It says all persons born or neutralized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That meant Black American, both formerly enslaved and free, were now officially recognized as U.S. citizens. No court could question it again. But the 14th Amendment did not stop there. It also granted due process, meaning the government can't take away any rights, your freedom, or your property without following fair legal procedures. And it promised equal protection under the law, meaning the law must apply to everyone the same, no matter your race or background. Now, this amendment was a direct response to the Supreme Court's Dred Scott decision. It was written to overturn the ruling and to protect the citizenship and the rights of Black Americans, to protect them from being denied or mistreated by the law again. This was directly aimed at making sure formerly enslaved Black people and their children will have birthright citizenship, which further proves the intent. Now, that's why you hear President Trump say it was written for the descendants of enslaved people, and that's true. That was the original purpose. So let's be clear. That law was sealed with Black Americans' ancestors' blood. But here's where it took a turn. In 1898, there was another Supreme Court case called United States versus Wong Kim Ark. Wong Kim Ark was born in San Francisco, but his parents were Chinese immigrants who were not U.S. citizens. The government tried to deny him citizenship when he came back from China. His argument was like, the 14th Amendment meant all persons born on U.S. soil have rights to citizenship. The Supreme Court ruled that under the 14th Amendment, he was considered a citizen. I feel it's worth noting that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court for that case was under Melville W. Fuller leadership. Now, records confirm that he upheld white supremacy and handed down several decisions that weakened Reconstruction era protection for Black people specifically. Even though it was after the Civil War, he held similar beliefs as Taney in the Dred Scott case. That's the case that manipulated the meaning of the word all to mean birthright citizenship beyond the descendants of enslaved Black Americans. Then word got out and everyone began to exploit the 14th Amendment law. That's how many people are even able to run for political office or sit on the boards. Pause and think about that. Take that in and don't let that fly over your head. Now, these are some powerful benefits for many people under the 14th Amendment law. So fast forward to 2025, the Supreme Court just agreed to hear a case about birthright citizenship. The same Supreme Court that not long ago tried to block and slow down some of Trump's executive orders on immigration. People are watching closely because this could change what it means to be a citizen in America for them. Black Americans are especially paying attention because many didn't realize the history of birthright citizenship. And now they're like recognizing that their ancestors had them in mind and died for them to have those rights after slavery. They understand it is being used for people who broke the law in the country illegally when their ancestor died to uphold the law. It raises questions, so let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in my next video.